The shuttle's landing engines hissed and sputtered as it settled onto the cracked obsidian surface of Zarthak Prime. The air was thick with an acrid tang, sulfur mixed with something wild and metallic, like blood beneath stone. Jagged. Peaks loomed overhead, claw-like against the dim green sky, casting long shadows that seemed to twitch and shift like living things. Commander Elena Voss stood at the open ramp, her gaze scanning the alien landscape. Around her, the rest of the human expedition team readied their gear, their faces taut with tension. No one spoke. Words felt useless here, swallowed by the overwhelming silence that pressed in like a living threat. "Remember the orders," Elena said, voice low but steady. "We're not here to provoke. We're here to make contact, to learn." She glanced at her second-in-command, Later Marcos Chen. His jaw was clenched tight, eyes sharp with disbelief. "You really think they'll listen?" Elena didn't answer. She didn't have to. The truth was, nobody expected peace. The Zarthak were legendary throughout the quadrant, the apex predators of this system. Towering, sinewy creatures with scales like onyx and claws sharper than any known alloy. Their reputation was built on centuries of ruthless conquest, leaving nothing but bones and fear in their wake. No other species dared approach Zarthak Prime willingly, and yet here they were. A sudden rustle tore through the shadows. Heads snapped to the sides. From the jagged cliffs above, a dozen Zarthak hunters emerged, low growls vibrating deep in their throats. Their amber eyes glinted like molten gold, fixed on the humans with predatory hunger. Muscles coiled beneath armored plates, tails twitching in anticipation. Marcos whispered, "Ambush!" Elena raised a hand. "Hold fire. Wait for my signal." The Zarthak didn't wait. With terrifying speed, they leapt down the rocks, claws slashing the air, teeth bared. The ground trembled beneath their charge. A blast of plasma fire lit the air. Shouts echoed as humans dove for cover. But Elena stepped forward, hands raised, not in surrender, but in a gesture strange and deliberate. "Stop," she commanded, voice ringing out clear and unwavering. The Zarthak halted mid-leap, confusion flickering in their fierce eyes. None had expected such audacity. "Why do you resist us?" snarled one, a massive warrior with scars crisscrossing his muzzle. Elena met his gaze without flinching. "Because we do not see you as enemies." Laughter, harsh and mocking, rippled through the Zarthak ranks. "You do not know our ways," the warlord said. "You are prey. Either submit or be destroyed." Elena's lips curved into a determined smile. "Or we share a meal." The warlord's eyes narrowed. "A meal? With you?" "Yes," she said, voice steady. "A feast, to sit together, to learn your strength, and show you ours." A tense silence fell. The hunting hall, an ancient stone amphitheater carved into the mountain, stood behind the Zarthak, a place where battles were celebrated and challengers tested. It was sacred. It was violent. And it was where the warlord finally nodded, a glint of curiosity flashing in his eyes. "Come, if you have courage, then sit with us. But be warned, this is no place for the weak." Elena exchanged a look with Marcos. The impossible had happened. The predators had accepted their invitation. The human party followed the Zarthak up the jagged steps, every sense alert. The hunting hall was vast, circular, and lined with trophies, bones and skulls of defeated enemies. The scent of old blood was thick, almost suffocating. The Zarthak warlord gestured to a stone bench opposite his own. "Sit. Let us see what makes you human." Elena settled down, noting the growls and whispers around them. The Zarthak were sizing her up, testing for weakness. She felt their eyes like knives but held her ground. As servants, hulking Zarthak, warriors in ceremonial armor, brought forward large platters of food. Elena glanced at her team. Their meals were unfamiliar, raw and fierce-looking, but the humans ate calmly, respectfully. The Zarthak snarled at their cautious approach. "You eat slowly?" "Why?" Elena smiled. Because eating is not just about strength. It's about respect, patience, understanding. A flicker of something like doubt or maybe intrigue passed over the warlord's face. Outside, the storm clouds darkened, rumbling with the promise of a tempest. Inside the hall, the first uneasy meal between predator and prey had begun. The galaxy had never seen anything like this. The ancient hunting hall was alive with sounds that unsettled the humans. Low growls, claws scraping against stone, and the rhythmic tapping of powerful tails brushing the floor. Shadows flickered across towering walls adorned with trophies. Massive skulls, crushed bones, and the faded hides of prey long vanished. Every inch whispered stories of death and dominance. Commander. Elena Voss sat opposite Zarthak warlord Korthak, the very embodiment of predator power. His eyes glowed amber in the dim light, sharp and calculating. Around them, the Zarthak council lounged, their massive bodies tense, muscles rippling beneath dark scales, watching with undisguised suspicion. A hulking servant brought forward a large platter piled with steaming meat, thick slabs still dripping blood seasoned with unfamiliar spices. The Zarthak took these eagerly, tearing chunks with claws sharper than razors. Elena watched carefully before signaling her team to begin their own meal. The humans' food was simpler: carefully roasted root vegetables, rare fruits, and a slow-cooked protein designed to appeal to alien tastes. It was an offering, an olive branch disguised as nourishment. Korthak's eyes narrowed as he observed the humans' methodical, almost ritualistic way of eating. They ate slowly, deliberately, savoring each bite. This was not the frenzy of a hunt's end. It was a ceremony. Why do you waste time with such weakness? Korthak's voice was low and gravelly, each word carrying the weight of authority.
In the wild, hesitation means death. Elena met his gaze steadily. Because eating is not just about consuming. It is about respect. For life. For those who provide it. And for those who share it with you. A murmur rippled through the
Zarthak Council. To them, this was folly. Apex predators did not honor prey. They consumed it. Power was shown through strength and dominance, not sentiment. Korthak leaned forward, claws tapping a slow rhythm on the stone table. You speak of respect, yet you sit where your ancestors would have been hunted and killed. Why should we honor you? Because we are here, Elena said quietly. Not as enemies, but as partners. We come with something stronger than claws and teeth, ideas, cooperation, and the will to change. From the corner, a younger Zarthak growled softly. A youth barely out of the hunting rites, his tail flicked with impatience. They are weak. This will end in their death. Korthak shot the youth a warning glance. Patience. Let us see. The meal progressed with an uneasy rhythm. Humans shared stories, not with words alone, but with gestures, cooking rituals, and symbolic acts. Elena invited a Zarthak elder to taste a specially prepared dish infused with spices from human colonies, a flavor rich and new. The elder's face twisted, caught between disgust and fascination. What is this sorcery? He demanded. A gift, Elena said. A gesture to bridge the gap between our worlds. The elder's growl softened, replaced by reluctant curiosity. Slowly, he took another bite. The room fell silent. Suddenly, a Zarthak warrior snapped a rib bone in frustration, the sharp crack echoing like a gunshot. The sound broke the tension but also sparked a flicker of anger in the assembly. You do not understand, the warrior snarled. We feast to show power, to remind each other who reigns supreme. Elena responded with a steady smile. Power is more than dominance. It is endurance, adaptability, and the bonds we build. You survive because you hunt alone. We survive because we hunt together. Korthak's eyes flickered with something unreadable. Was it respect or disbelief? The hall grew quieter, the energy shifting like a tide. Some Zarthak exchanged wary glances. This human was unlike any prey they had faced. Calm, confident, unyielding. Then, from the shadows, a harsh laugh cut through the stillness. A grizzled Zarthak elder, known for his unflinching loyalty to tradition, stood abruptly, his claws dug into the table, rattling the stone. You speak of peace and respect, human, but the galaxy does not reward the weak. We are hunters. We live by strength. If you wish to sit with us, prove it. Show us your strength, not your words. The challenge hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Elena stood, unshaken. We accept your challenge, the council murmured, some in approval, others in outrage. Korthak nodded slowly, a grim smile curling his lips. Then tomorrow you will prove that humans are not just prey to be devoured. You will face our trials, and only then will the feast continue. The humans exchanged nervous glances, but Elena's resolve hardened. She had gambled everything on this moment. As the feast drew to a close, the air was charged, not with simple hostility, but with a fragile, simmering possibility. Something new had been born amid blood and fire. The ancient predators had met something they could not easily destroy, and humanity had sat down to eat with apex predators and changed the rules forever. The dawn light filtered through the jagged skylights of the hunting hall, casting eerie green-gold hues on the stone floor. The Zarthak Council gathered again, their massive forms looming like living statues. Elena Voss stood before them, the weight of their expectations heavy on her shoulders, but she carried something far more valuable than weapons: stories. Korthak, the warlord, sat with arms crossed, his amber eyes sharp as ever. Beside him, the grizzled elder, known as Garmak, grunted, clearly skeptical of what humanity could offer beyond flesh and fire. The younger Zarthak warriors buzzed with restless energy, eager to see the humans prove their worth. Elena cleared her throat. You challenged us to show our strength, not just in muscle or claws, but in the spirit that drives us. She gestured to her team, who began unfolding scroll-like data pads, ancient human relics and symbolic objects carefully gathered from Earth and the colonies. For millennia, Elena said, voice steady, humanity survived not by hunting, alone, but by working together, by building bonds stronger than fear. Our strength comes from empathy, innovation, and trust. Korthak's tail flicked impatiently. Words are wind. Show us. Elena smiled, and the room dimmed as holographic images sprung to life, a cascade of moments from human history. Scenes of ancient hunters sharing food, farmers tilling land side by side, communities rebuilding after disasters, human faces smiling, crying, celebrating together. This is how we thrive, Elena explained. Not by ruling through fear, but by embracing cooperation, by turning enemies into allies. Garmak snorted. You speak of weakness. The strong take what they want or perish. But strength isn't just about taking, Elena said softly. It's about survival, adaptability, the courage to change. She gestured to an image of early humans gathered around a fire. Long ago we hunted together. We shared the kill because no one could survive alone. The fire was not just to cook, but to bring us together, to create trust where there was once only danger. Korthak's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. Suddenly a young Zarthak warrior stepped forward. His name was Zalkor, and his eyes shone with a mixture of defiance and curiosity. Your stories speak of weakness, but you show no fear sitting with us. Why? Elena met him directly. Because we believe there is something stronger than fear: respect, honor, and the will to find common ground. Zalkor's tail twitched as he looked at the images. A flicker of understanding crossed his fierce features. Your people have learned from fire, but what of your claws, your teeth? A human engineer, a wiry woman named Dr. Leon, stepped forward. Our tools are our claws. We build, create, invent. We use our minds to protect, to overcome. She activated a small device that projected a glowing schematic of a defensive shield, something the Zarthak had never seen. We survive by thinking ahead, by protecting each other, Garmak growled low in the back. Technology cannot replace strength. You speak in riddles. Elena nodded. Not replace. Complement. Strength without wisdom leads to ruin. We have scars from wars far worse than yours, and we learned that survival means evolving. Korthak stood suddenly, his massive form casting a long shadow. You ask us to change, to betray our blood and honor. Why? Because the galaxy is changing, Elena said quietly. New threats rise beyond your hunting grounds, forces that neither predator nor prey can face alone. If you cling to old ways, you will fall. A heavy silence fell. Then, from the darkness, a chilling roar echoed, a reminder of the deadly universe beyond their fragile feast. Xalcor glanced at Korthak. The hunter does not wait for the prey to grow strong. We strike first. Elena stepped forward. Then strike with us. Together. Korthak's gaze softened just a fraction. You speak boldly, human. Tomorrow you will face our trials. Strength and cunning. Only then will we know if you are worthy. The humans nodded, prepared for the challenge. But more than that, they had sown a seed, something fragile and new, a challenge to the Zarthak's ancient code. As the council dispersed, Elena turned to Marcos. They're not just beasts. They're bound by tradition and fear just like us once were. Marcos exhaled. So, what happens when the feast turns to war? We change the game, Elena said. One story, one meal at a time. Outside, the sun climbed higher over Zarthak Prime, but inside the ancient hall a different kind of fire was burning, the fire of possibility. Dawn broke over Zarthak Prime with a harsh glare, washing the jagged cliffs in cold light. The ancient hunting grounds lay before them, a vast expanse of cracked stone, twisted trees, and yawning chasms. This was no mere arena. It was a crucible where warriors proved their worth, where strength and cunning met in brutal balance. Elena stood alongside her team, eyes fixed on the gathering Zarthak warriors. Their towering bodies were taut with anticipation, muscles coiled like springs ready to snap. Among them was Korthak, the warlord whose gaze burned like molten metal, and Garmak, the elder whose scowl seemed carved from stone. The trials begin, Korthak announced, voice resonating through the air like thunder. Humans, prove you are more than prey. The first challenge was simple in concept, but deadly in execution. Track and capture a wild Zarthak beast, fierce, cunning, and nearly invisible in the dense underbrush. The humans exchanged glances. Their physical strength paled in comparison, but their minds were sharp, their tools unconventional. Elena led the way, signaling her team. Instead of weapons, they carried sensors, camouflage suits, and holographic decoys. The Zarthak hunters snorted in derision. Technology will not save you, Garmak growled. Only claws and teeth. The hunt began. The Zarthak vanished into the shadows with lethal grace. Elena's team moved differently, quiet, coordinated, analyzing terrain, reading patterns of movement unseen by naked eyes. Hours passed, sweat, stinging eyes and limbs aching. Then a flicker, a beast's silhouette slinking between rocks. Xalcor, the young Zarthak warrior, leapt forward, claws extended. But Elena's engineer, Dr. Leon, deployed a shimmer of light that disoriented the beast, her device emitting pulses that interfered with its senses. The Zarthak howled in frustration, but the beast was captured, not by force, but by cleverness. Korthak's eyes narrowed. Interesting. The second trial was mental, a puzzle carved in stone, ancient Zarthak runes that only those who understood their meaning could unlock. This was a test of wit, memory, and patience. Elena knelt before the massive stone, studying the symbols. The Zarthak Council watched with skepticism. Minutes passed. The humans worked together, deciphering patterns and symbols, piecing together the meaning with whispered collaboration. Korthak growled softly, "You read our language?" Elena nodded. "We listen, to survive." The final test was a trial by combat, not of raw strength, but of strategy. Humans and Zarthak faced off in a simulated hunt, where the goal was not to kill, but to capture the flag from the opponent's territory. Zarthak warriors charged with primal fury, claws tearing the air. The humans dodged, using calculated maneuvers and teamwork LT. Marcos Chen called out coordinated signals, flanking maneuvers and feints. The Zarthak were forced to adapt to think beyond brute force. Salcor, breathing hard, looked at Elena with new respect. "You fight like a pack." Elena smiled. "Because we are." Korthak stepped forward after the final horn, bloodied, but not broken. "You have surprised us. Your strength is not in muscle alone, but in mind and heart." Garmak still scowled, but even he could not deny the change in the air. Elena wiped sweat from her brow. "We do not seek to replace your ways, but to blend them, to become stronger together." Korthak nodded slowly. "Tomorrow we feast again, but the challenges are not over." As the sun set over Zarthak Prime, the humans and apex predators shared a silent acknowledgement. The old rules were breaking and a new game had begun. The night around Zarthak Prime's hunting hall was thick with silence, broken only by distant howls echoing through the jagged mountains. But inside, the atmosphere was charged, electric with anticipation and an uneasy sense of unity. The feast was set to resume, but this time, it was more than food on the table. It was a test of trust. Korthak, the formidable warlord, rose from his stone seat and raised a massive clawed hand. "Tonight we share more than a meal. We share our stories, our scars, and our blood." Elena met his gaze steadily. "We are ready." The Zarthak warriors and elders began to reveal markings carved into their scales, tattoos of honor, wounds from battles, and symbols of their history. Elena noticed how each mark carried a story, a lesson in survival, or a memory of loss. Zarthak elder Garmak approached with a ceremonial blade. He extended it toward Elena. "A rite of trust. A drop of blood shared binds us in ways words cannot." Elena hesitated for only a moment, then pressed her finger against the blade's edge. A bead of blood welled and fell onto the stone surface. "Human," Garmak said, his voice softer than before. "You are brave. The blood of prey mingles with that of the hunter." Marcos followed Elena, drawing his own blood in response. One by one, humans and Zarthak shared the ritual, their blood mingling on the stone floor, an ancient covenant raw and irrevocable. As the feast began, the atmosphere shifted. The Zarthak no longer viewed the humans as mere guests, but as potential allies or even kin. Stories unfolded around the fire, tales of the fiercest hunts, of losses and victories, of moments when strength alone was not enough. Elena shared a story from Earth, a time when humanity faced extinction during the Great Wars, not through claws or teeth, but through their own divisions. "We survived," she said quietly, "because we chose to come together, to see each other as more than enemies." Korthak listened, his fierce gaze softened by understanding. "Perhaps your kind is stronger than we believed." The younger, warriors once skeptical, now approached the humans with cautious respect. Zalcor, who had challenged Elena's people earlier, now sat beside her, sharing a strange, slow smile. "Teach me your ways," he said, "not just of battle, but of the mind and heart." Elena nodded, sensing a turning point. "And you will teach us yours." Outside, the howls grew louder, a reminder of the wild dangers lurking beyond the stone walls. But inside, an alliance was quietly being forged, one meal and one shared scar at a time. The uneasy calm that had settled over Zarthak Prime was shattered by the arrival of an urgent message, an encrypted transmission intercepted by the human team's sensors. Elena studied the holographic display, her heart tightening. The message was garbled but unmistakable, a warning of an approaching fleet, unknown ships, hostile and heavily armed, moving fast toward the system. Korthak paced, his heavy footsteps echoing in the cavernous hall. "Invaders? From where? Marcos stepped forward, fingers flying over a datapad. No records of their origin. No known faction claims them. They appear to be mercenaries or worse, raiders. A shadow crossed Korthak's face. If they attack, this world will burn. We are not prepared. Elena nodded. Then we have no time to waste. Our alliance is no longer just about survival of traditions. It is about survival itself. The Zarthak warriors gathered around, claws flexing, eyes blazing with renewed purpose. The humans shared their tactical knowledge, plasma shields, coordinated strikes, communication networks, while the Zarthak offered their unmatched combat skills and intimate knowledge of the terrain. Zalcor stood beside Elena, a fierce determination in his gaze. We fight together now. No more hunters and prey. Korthak's voice thundered. Tonight, the feast will not be for celebration. It will be for courage, for blood shared in battle. As darkness fell, the combined forces of humans and Zarthak prepared defenses. Elena felt the weight of history pressing down, but also the fierce hope of a new future. In the shadows beyond the walls, the first enemy scouts slipped through, their cold weapons gleaming under the twin moons. The war for Zarthak Prime, and for the fragile alliance between predator and human, had begun. The twin moons cast a ghostly light over Zarthak Prime's jagged landscape, turning the rocky spires into looming sentinels. The air was thick with anticipation and the sharp tang of ozone from energy weapons charging in the darkness. Elena stood beside Korthak, both poised atop a ridge overlooking the valley where the invaders were predicted to strike. Behind them, the combined forces of humans and Zarthak readied themselves, a strange but potent army forged from fire and flesh. Remember, Elena said quietly, we survive by working together. Trust your instincts and each other. Korthak's amber eyes flickered with approval. Tonight we hunt as one. The first wave hit without warning, a volley of plasma blasts lighting up the night as mercenary skiffs descended. Zarthak warriors roared, charging with lethal precision. Claws and teeth met steel and energy in a brutal dance. Marcos coordinated the human squads, directing shield generators and artillery with sharp commands. The humans' tactics slowed the mercenaries, but the enemy's numbers were overwhelming. Zalcor fought beside Elena, his massive form moving with deadly grace. We are stronger together, he growled, slicing through an armored foe. But the mercenaries adapted quickly. They deployed drones, swarms of metal beasts that harried the defenders, forcing them into desperate close combat. Amid the chaos, Elena spotted a group of civilians trapped in a collapsed ravine, caught between enemy lines and certain death. Marcos, we need a rescue team, she shouted. On it, he replied, already coordinating a small squad. Elena took a deep breath and led a group through narrow rock passages, the twin moons' light barely guiding their path. Every shadow could hide a deadly foe. They reached the ravine just as mercenaries closed in. Zarthak warriors formed a protective circle, fangs bared and claws flashing, buying precious time. The rescue was frantic, but successful. As the last civilian was pulled free, a mercenary sniper took aim. Korthak's roar split the night as he launched himself at the shooter, silencing the threat with a swift, brutal strike. The battle raged on for hours. Blood soaked the earth, and the howls of the wounded mingled with the cries of the dying. But the alliance held. At dawn, as the first light touched the scorched valley, the mercenaries retreated, broken, battered, and unwilling to face an enemy united by more than just survival. Elena sank to her knees, exhausted but triumphant. Korthak stood beside her, bloodied but unbowed. You fought with honor, he said gruffly. Your people have earned a place at our side. Elena looked up at the rising sun. This is only the beginning. As the twin moons faded and the sun warmed the scarred land, a new dawn rose, not just for Zarthak Prime, but for an alliance that had rewritten the rules of survival. The first rays of the twin suns bathed Zarthak Prime in golden light, casting long shadows over the battlefield now silent but scarred. The air still carried the scent of smoke and iron, but beneath it lay something new: hope. Elena stood beside Korthak atop the ridge overlooking the valley. Around them, the warriors of both species tended to their wounds, shared water, and mended shattered weapons. The humans had proven themselves in blood and fire. The Zarthak had accepted them not just as allies, but as kin. Korthak's massive form was worn but proud. "You came to sit and eat with apex predators," he said quietly, "and you did more than change the rules. You changed our world." Elena smiled, the weight of countless battles lifting. "We learned from each other. From fire and flesh. From strength and wisdom." Zalcor approached, his expression a mixture of respect and curiosity. "Teach us your ways, of thinking beyond, the hunt of building what lasts." "And we will learn from your strength," Elena replied. "Together we can face whatever shadows the galaxy sends next." The Zarthak elders gathered, marking the moment with an ancient ritual, a shared hunt not of prey, but of future. As the sun rose higher, the two species symbolically released a pair of great hunting birds into the sky, creatures revered by both, symbols of freedom and partnership. Marcos, bruised but unbroken, clapped Elena on the shoulder. "You did it. You changed them." Elena nodded. "We all did." This feast wasn't just a meal, it was the first page of a new story. As the day unfolded, plans were made, not just for defense but for cooperation. Trade routes, shared knowledge, joint patrols of the system. The galaxy beyond Zarthak Prime was vast and dangerous, but now humanity and the Zarthak faced it not as hunter and prey but as partners. Elena gazed at the horizon, the twin suns warming her face. The feast had ended, but the real journey, the one of trust, respect, and survival, had just begun.